More to the immediate point, this forest preserve area lies just east of O'Hare International Airport, the site of a famous UFO sighting on November 7, 2006. Are you familiar with this supposedly famous UFO sighting 2006?
Not particular. No,
Okay.
2000. Nope.
So it's famous, but we didn't hear about it. Sounds
I had
good.
lived up there up to 2002, and then we had moved downstate. I mean, maybe I'd heard about it, but
Okay. There were at least 12 witnesses to a daylight flyover of a metallic gray disc, and the group included United Airways staff and pilots. The craft hung in the sky over gate C-17. I should remember never to go to this gate for several tantalizing minutes at about 4:15 p.m. Wow, this was like in the daylight.
yep.
Before zipping up into a cloud layer at such a great speed that it left a round hole revealing clear blue sky beyond, exactly like other reports of aerial portals. I just want to say to people who want to learn more about UFOs from religious Christian perspective, check out my episode I did with a few months ago with Dr. Hugh Ross. He dissects all of these things and just explains that these are interdimensional beings, but they're not aliens from other planets. Okay. The hole then shrank back to full cloud cover. The event garnered headlines nationwide, and it is still a popular search item on the internet. Of course, that event occurred almost 40 years after Turner's experience, so I checked to see if there were any sightings recorded at a date closer to his sightings. To my own surprise, I did find another report of a Chicago area UFO in the summer of 1967. It occurred at dusk on either July 12th or August 12th, depending on the reporting organization consulting, the National UFO Reported Center or the Mutual UFO Network. The location was Edison Park, which lies only 2 or 3 miles northeast of the forest preserve where Turner saw the large creature and the screaming shadow figures. According to these accounts, two 15-year-old young men witnessed a 12 to 14-foot dull white triangle slowly traversing the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad tracks at about 60 feet, directly above the power lines and heading northwest. They had just exited a house on Northwestern Highway where one of the boys lived when they were greeted by the amazing sight that was fully visible from the home's backyard. The silent craft soon glided away as it continued its northwest trajectory above the tracks and power line. The boys thought about telling their family members still gathered indoors, but decided no one would believe them. Like Turner, they kept the incident to themselves for over 40 years until 2007. Man, I would go insane to be silent for 40 years. When one of them decided to report it to the two major UFO tracking groups noted above. In the August date, if the August date was correct, it might even have been the same week Turner took his fateful bike ride. At any rate, the UFO sighting was close enough to Turner's encounter in both date and location to be noteworthy. Whether or not the UFO and the Bigfoot were truly related, of course, cannot be proved, and I should add that Turner was very surprised to learn of that UFO. Okay, Doug, this is your section.
All right. The wall of silence. By the way, about UFOs. Did you know there are U.S. patents that have been filed for triangular craft that can move, that can like alter like gravity around it, so it can make super fast movements. Now, scientists have argued that those patents are ridiculous, but they have been filed and through the U.S. Navy, and so there's questions like why would the Navy do that whenever other physicists say you can't replicate what you're saying, that's ridiculous what you're arguing or what you're presenting. Um, I just bring that up because interdimensional beings, sure, military craft, very likely. Planets from creatures from another planet, no. Like there's something there, probably not aliens from another planet. Um, something. The wall of silence. Of course, the fact that there was a UFO sighting at nearly the same time and in the same vicinity as Turner's experience doesn't prove or disprove anything about the creature's level of reality either. But while Bigfoot behaved in a way completely appropriate to the physical world as it explored and utilized the park's environment, there were a few other parts of this sighting that fall closer to the side of high strangeness. One was a remark Turner made about the uncanny silence in his surroundings during the encounter, hearing only the creature, the river, and himself. This wall of silence, often described by witnesses of unknown creatures, UFO encounters, and various paranormal situations, is akin to the zone of fear, or Oz factor phenomena discussed earlier in the book. The biggest question in that regard is why a close encounter with Bigfoot, especially if it is just an undiscovered, fully natural animal, or even a close human relative, would induce such a profound silence. Well, we've already discussed possible psychological conditions, such as derealization, that resemble the Oz factor, but simply knowing that this phenomenon of silence can be induced doesn't explain why it happens during encounters with Bigfoot. Tom Burnett and Rob Riggs have yet another name for the phenomena. They call it the eerie silence in a book called Bigfoot, Exploring the Myth and Discovering the Truth. And also connected to a Bigfoot, lights, and UFOs. And they write, this is a quote from that book, not only are there long-term established histories of Bigfoot-type creature sightings near the Big Thicket in Texas and Brown Mountain ghost light locations, but a brief survey of the available literature will show that the Yakima Indian Reservation lights in Washington, the Gonzales Light in Louisiana, the Garden Light in Arkansas, and the Hornet Spook Light location in Missouri, to name a few, also have histories of numerous repeated sightings of mysterious, hairy primates nearby to where the lights recur. End quote. Burnett and Riggs have proposed that these cases may have something to do with the interactions between the magnetic fields of humans and the magnetic fields of the natural landscape, and perhaps unknown forces or intelligences. Again, that's the suggestion of a quantum collaboration. So let me pause on that. I think she's referring to something earlier in the book talking about quantum collaborations, and I would just completely dispute that. Like, just because it's scientific and weird doesn't mean it's quantum. Okay, quantum is well known. Quantum mechanics, quantum physics is well known and is completely unrelated to weird things happening in the physical world now. We did again on paranormal, we did a 3-part episode where we had a quantum physicist who's also a charismatic Christian, who led a supernatural ministry school. He travels the world doing conferences and speaking, but he's a physicist, and he's like, no, there's no correlation between the spiritual and quantum mechanics. And he explained why. It took him 3 episodes. A lot of it was over my head, but I just it might be science and it might be weird, but it is not quantum. So let's just get that out, okay? Back to the book. They have done experiments that showed compasses will often malfunction near known sightings of Bigfoots and mysterious lights, and believe this may be a significant key to the mystery. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I have also know that people who are highly sort of spiritual with supernatural encounters, people who see spirits, often will drain batteries of cell phones, of other things. Like the batteries just get drained, right? Because there's something in their aura, something in their spirit that is impacting this physical around them, and electronics go haywire sometimes. And it's known that whenever there's a haunting or there's a spiritual encounter in home, sometimes things go haywire with electronics. I've seen that. I've experienced it, but it's just not in my own personal experiences. It's just kind of well known. I have an article in the book. I have an article on my website, and I mentioned it briefly in the coming book, but don't go into it. I don't know why. I don't know why. Okay, that people who are highly gifted in spiritual things drain cell phone batteries. I used to get so mad at my daughter because she would just drain her cell phone battery like crazy. I'm like, stop using your cell phone so much. And I'm not. And like, well, it turns out she's just very spiritual. So I don't know why. Can't explain it. It's mysterious, right? It goes along with myths, mysteries, and majesty.
So if I need half a day or almost a whole day to spend my battery, that means I'm not spiritual.
I don't know. I'm not saying that, right?
I have to be concerned.
I'm making some observations. I can't make conclusions from the observations. It's strange. It's strange. Modern cell phones are a little bit better than the ones 10 years ago. I will say that. But I had a friend who was a seer who used to be in the U.S. military, and she was like, I can't remember where she worked exactly, but she just it was just difficult for military grade batteries to just degrade around her, and she couldn't help it. It was just like put her somewhere else, right? Okay. And by the way, understand that the military, like, and I'm not saying all levels of the military, but this stuff is known. Like, the military researches this sort of thing because they want to look for leverage against their enemies, right? Okay.
This sounds like an X-Files episode.
Oh,
I love
all
it.
these do. Everything we're talking about is the X-Files have explored a lot of these things. All right. It's for sure. Okay. This is a quote from their book again. When the eerie silence dawns, it may be like the dead canary in a coal mine and serve as a warning that the creatures are nearby. Remember in Stranger Things, whenever like the lights start flickering and like, oh, well, someone is here, and
Yeah.
it's okay. It's similar to that. Okay, all right. The creatures are nearby, employing their mental projections of magnetic energy. And by the way, I'm not saying Stranger Things is accurate, but it is playing around with these same concepts. All right, that are very hard to understand. Whatever causes cars to stall and their electric systems to black out when Bigfoots are around might also short circuit nervous systems or induce dormancy and helplessness in their intended prey in the wild. That makes sense to me. I mean, that makes sense. When human beings are subjected to this weird effect, it has mystifying and sometimes terrifying results. Yeah, for sure. End quote. All right. Back to Linda. So this is Linda continuing on. This, of course, brings to mind the incidents explored earlier here where green mists and spook lights have shut down electrical systems in cars. As Riggs explained in his earlier book, In the Big Thicket, on the Trail of the Wild Man, quote, we have seen that the wild man creature sightings are associated with the mysterious energies that sometimes manifest as light forms. These lights, which recur in the same locations for generations in the form of the ghost light phenomenon, also have a peculiar relation to the consciousness of the observer. We have speculated that these energies may be evidence of a form of non-localized consciousness, and that, as such, constitute a sort of field of psychic energy that may be as much a part of our natural environment as the air we breathe, end quote. Wow. So, all right, dissect that for me. What did he just say? What does that mean?
Yeah. He just confirmed what you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, if I would be late at night in a forest and seeing that weird fog, I would be freaking out. Like if let's say you don't have a car, you're just, I don't know, camping, visiting someone, you got lost, whatever, and you see, like, as if it's not enough that you need time to get out of the forest, it's getting dark, and now you see this green fog. I mean, that's already getting like you like in the atmosphere of those good horror movies.
Yeah.
I'll be a little bit concerned, to be honest. I'll be starting singing hymns to God, praying. I'm like, okay, God, just, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably would do the same thing. Worship is powerful warfare, man. You don't have to necessarily pray against something. You start worshiping Jesus, and it is powerful warfare. In the middle of the woods, when you're being surrounded by werewolves, maybe don't look for the silver bullet. Maybe start worshiping. Look for the harp.
And that's a amazing slogan on a T-shirt.
I know. I'm just thinking about that. Yes, yeah. These things are weird, and you don't have to understand it to know that, God is weirder, and I mean he can take it out, right? So worshiping also brings peace to you, and it brings peace to the environment, both spiritual and physical. I mean, have you ever noticed sometimes you go to someone's house and it just has a creepy energy in it, like an angry energy, and as soon as you leave, it's like, man, I feel better. Maybe you don't consciously notice it, but like sometimes maybe you'll get invited somewhere, like, I really want to go over there. I don't know why. You can't put two and two together, but your spirit's like, no, I'm not going there. But other places, you're like, oh, I definitely am going there because there's something nice about the spirit realm there.
Yeah, it's more welcoming and whatever. But also, I went once to this friend's house. We were like several guys, and I was in another room, and I was like, where's everyone? I went to another room. They were watching porn on the computer. isolated from me because they knew I was a Christian. And when I went there, they told me the computer, that porn video just froze when I entered the room,
Yeah.
but I didn't even know. I was just looking for that. I never forgot. This happened like maybe 20 years ago, but to this moment, I will never forget that. Or like a not completely the same. It's not about electronics, but once we were coming out from a park, my friend and I, good friend, and even then, so I was a Christian, he was not. I was a new Christian, and he was cussing God, which is very common, unfortunately, in my country. It's almost comes like, "Hi, how are you?" It's like it's a common thing, you know. Don't ask me to explain. So as we were exiting the park, and he cussed God. Soon after that, like, there was like a bird flying over our heads and pooped on his. It was either shoulder or head, not mine. It couldn't be me,
Yeah.
but it did on him. I thought the timing was perfect, and it was so funny.
When I was in college, I did not drink alcohol, and it was a matter of conviction for me. And my friends knew it. I was the designated driver. They just knew I didn't drink. Okay, and I was at a party, and my roommate, who was it was a big party, everyone's drinking except for me and this girl I was with. This guy came over and said, "Here, Doug, have a drink. Have a drink." Why does it matter? Okay, like if you don't drink, why do people want to force you to drink? I've never understood that. Okay, it's all right, it's all right. I'm like, it's fine. I'm not saying it's a sin. I'm just saying it's just like that's my conviction. I'm not doing it. Okay, and he was like, "Come on, here." I'm like, and I finally was like, okay, fine, whatever, just to make him go away. I was going to have a drink, and I reached for it, and that cup went flying out of his hand and hit the wall. Right? I mean, like, dude, it was, and I looked at it, and he looked at me. His eyes got real big. Oh God, I'm sorry. I'll never tempt you again. You know, and I'm so sorry. God, forgive me, Doug, forgive me. And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. I'm like, that was, I don't know what to do with that. You know, you can't deny supernatural experiences. All right. You want to say his muscle reflexed and it went flying? No, we were there. We had 3 witnesses. It went flying against the wall. Was it my telekinetic powers? I don't know, man. It was weird. And it confirmed my conviction, and he never asked me again.
Hey, if it's weird, it's important, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And it was strange. It was neat. Okay. Where were we? Oh, Sasquatch. Let's continue. Riggs also posited that the Sasquatch, which I guess is another word for Bigfoot, might be so much more aware of and able to utilize these energy fields. Reminds me a little bit of like angelic powers. Like, how can the sons of God or the Watchers step into our reality, take on physical form, procreate with women, do other apparently horrible things, and then step out and back into the spiritual? How? And I've seen so much speculation of like angel DNA and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, you're
Or portals.
yeah,
That's one of my
yeah.
favorite. I don't think they exist, but I'm like, I don't. How can I know? I don't know. People may say, "Oh, the Jacob's ladders, for example, or the thresholds in the Old Testament. These are like portals." I'm like, that's your understanding of the Bible. I don't see that, but I mean, I don't know.
There's some strange stuff there, right? Like doors that open. I mean, they used to think these portals, or I would call it a doorway to heaven or a stairway to heaven, were on mountains. This is why people went to certain mountains like Bethel. They thought one was there at Bethel, and they thought one was on Zion, right? They went to the Hermon, another one. That's where the prophets went to go listen to God. They thought that's where God's door was, right? Weird, huh? Portals. Yeah. Well, anyway, so where are we at? Oh, yeah. So maybe the Sasquatch, that they possess what looks like to us advanced psychic abilities, including the power to influence human minds telepathically or make themselves appear to vanish. He cites a study by Ann Slate and Alan Berry discussed in their 1976 book Bigfoot, in which they come to the conclusion that, according to a number of cases they examined from around the United States, quote, there were times when it almost seemed as if the creatures could make themselves invisible and disappear in a split second. It wasn't a thought that any of the men warmed to or liked to discuss, yet inexorably it would surface. Were there spiritual or other unknown forces at play? I mean, people just, end quote, people just dance around that. It reacts to the name of Jesus. Could it be spiritual? I don't know. Let's not talk about it. Yeah, or because once you ask that question, then you kind of have to submit. Otherwise, you're just going to keep yourself exposed. This is my book, Peace in Your House, is about. Once you understand that there is a spiritual hierarchy, and the spiritual and the physical are very close, like not upside down, but side by side, like very close, very close. And that sin has physical consequences. The presence of angels or demons have physical consequences. The presence of God has physical consequences. And physical consequences, physical things can impact the spiritual. It's weird. So why not? Why, that's interesting to me. That Bigfoot book in 1976, that sounds, I'd like to maybe look at that. That's really interesting. That, and how does that correlate well with what we read in the Bible of creatures moving in and out of the physical? And when Jesus walked through walls, people want to say, well, that's quantum physics. It's not quantum physics. Stop with the quantum physics. But it might be something like this, where this is after the resurrection, right? Whenever he was more than human, maybe but he didn't fall through the floor, on the upper room. He just walked through the wall. He didn't fall through the floor. So he just chose which matter he could go through. It's
okay. Yeah, and I think sometimes Christians who don't believe in these things, they may say, well, that's Jesus. Okay, these are demonic creatures. And I will say, well, yeah, correct. Jesus is all powerful, almighty, true. But just read the Old Testament. It's not just the good guys who could have done supernatural stuff. It was also the demonic powers, right? I mean, how can when Daniel in chapter 10 asked for God to send help, how can the archangel and his army be delayed for a couple of weeks? I mean, because the forces are evil. They're not just demons. You have all these big guns, if I can put it, like all these principalities. Yep. Like, they're powerful. They can also manifest in bodily form. They also have people who are under them as acting as their earthly army, but they also have spiritual army. They're like different kinds of them and species, and like all of this is much more majestic and much more complex, and we know only a little bit, and I think while we should be guarded and in a healthy way, be suspicious, we also need to be humble and understand how much we don't know, and there is much more that we don't know than we do know. So
that's right. Yep, there's much more we don't know. Think about this. So in the book of Luke, today we're recording this the beginning of Advent, right? So when the angel appeared to Zechariah is in the temple doing his thing, and the angel appears there. And then later Luke says that he comes out, right? Zechariah can't speak. He comes out and he's making signs that an angel appeared to him, and it says they discerned, or they figured he had a vision. Okay, he had a vision. Was the angel corporeally there? Like, could he touch the angel? Like, something is impacting the physical world because his eyes are picking up on it. But they said he had a vision. He didn't say he had a visitation. He saw something, all right? Once, we mentioned Daniel. Once when Daniel saw an angel, there were other people around him who didn't see the angel. They all sort of passed out from the power of whatever was there, but they didn't see it. He saw it. And then in Matthew, when the angel appears to Joseph, he appears to him in a dream. He appears to the wise men in a dream. And he appears to Joseph in like several dreams, actually, the angels do. So that's different, right? Well, was Zechariah having a waking dream? Did he when he stepped into the room for the incense thing? Was he stepping into the side by side and the angel was there all along? And then when he stepped out, the angel was gone? I don't know, man. I'm just speculating. It's just like we're looking for patterns, right? When Daniel met the angel on the road, did he accidentally not accidentally, was he drawn into the side by side to see the angel? The angel was there, but the other people weren't. You know what I mean? And then when the vision was over, he stepped back into the regular reality. But I like this side by side metaphor, man. I'm gonna start using it.
Yeah, you know what? I think, unless I'm wrong, and it could be, but I think the whole Bible from beginning until the end says whenever there's this supernatural presence or a vision, different prophets and apostles when they were said they saw this angelic figure standing. I know this can be just a form of speech, but like if it's a in a spirit form, in a ghostly form, why is that entity not levitating? Why is it standing? So could it be that this entity is taking physical form to communicate with people and then going back to their own realm, which is spiritual realm? So if the good guys are doing that, like I said, there's no reason for us to think that the fallen ones, who are gods, the small Elohim, they're again way more powerful than just your local demons that possess people. Why are we assuming that these entities cannot do the same? They can. So yeah, very
Yeah,
interesting.
I think in Jeremiah 1, when Yahweh the angel appears, I can't remember how he says it, but I think he reaches out with his hand. The word of the Lord appears, right? The word of Yahweh, right? So that's the visible form of Yahweh. He appears, but it's not a vision because he reaches out and touches him. So he's physically there. Like, if okay, we're getting too sciencey, right? Like if you
Yeah.
can see it, is it physically there? Because light waves are hitting it, right? It's too sciencey. Maybe it's just stepping into the side by side and all right.